In the early 13th century, established kingdoms across Eurasia faced a sudden, catastrophic collapse. Heavily fortified cities, protected by massive stone walls and generations of military tradition, were falling to an enemy they didn't understand. This invading force arrived from the east with unprecedented speed. Often, the first sign of an attack was dust on the horizon, followed almost immediately by an army that moved faster than any previous military force in history. Terrifying rumors moved even faster than the soldiers. Accounts of total destruction paralyzed kingdoms with fear, breaking their will to fight before a single arrow was fired. The medieval world was confronting a new style of warfare. The massive static defenses of the era provided no security against an enemy that prioritized infinite mobility over the control of fixed points. Far from the burning cities, the source of this global upheaval began in the quiet isolation of the Mongolian steppe. The man who would restructure the world was once an abandoned outcast. Temujin's youth was defined by trauma. After his father was murdered by poisoning, his family was abandoned by their own tribe, left to face the freezing winters of the grasslands alone. In an environment where food was uncertain and resources were limited, survival became a daily struggle. Every decision was a matter of resilience and adaptation, forcing Temujin to build strength from the ground up. These years of hardship directly shaped his future empire. The traits required to survive the steppe, ruthless efficiency and extreme mobility, became the core requirements for every soldier under his command. Before Temujin rose to power, the nomadic clans of the region were violently divided. Constant warfare and shifting alliances kept the tribes locked in a cycle of local conflict. Temujin changed the political structure of the steppe when he discarded inherited noble bloodlines. He rewarded loyalty and competence over birthright, allowing talented individuals to rise through the ranks regardless of their tribe. This strict meritocracy allowed him to successfully absorb defeated rivals. By offering a shared vision for the future instead of tribal division, he turned competing clans into a single cohesive force. Having unified the ultimate survivors of the steppe into a lethal machine, Temujin was given the title of Genghis Khan, the ruler of all Mongols. Civilizations in China and the West relied on static stone fortifications for safety. The Mongols countered this with a philosophy of movement, treating massive walls as obstacles to be bypassed or surrounded. Their cavalry could travel vast distances in a single day, striking deep into enemy territory before an opposing army could even react. This speed allowed them to seize the initiative in almost every engagement. To coordinate these movements, Mongol commanders used a sophisticated intelligence network. Information flowed through relay stations across the empire, allowing armies separated by hundreds of miles to act in unison. This wasn't just brute force. By gathering intelligence and exploiting weaknesses with precision, the Mongols outmaneuvered states that possessed much larger populations and traditional armies. Though often outnumbered on the battlefield, the Mongols utilized their reputation for absolute ruthlessness to offset the odds. Psychological warfare became as effective as their archery. When cities saw the destruction inflicted on those who resisted, many chose to surrender immediately, allowing Mongol forces to secure vast regions while conserving their military resources for the next campaign. This historical map shows the apex of their expansion, a continuous landmass stretching from the Pacific Ocean into Eastern Europe. Moving across these boundaries, rulers across 3 continents found themselves facing the exact same existential threat, unified by the scale of the Mongol advance. Within a single lifetime, this kinetic force had redrawn the global balance of power and broken the foundations of the medieval world. The Mongol Empire presented a historical contradiction. While they were effective destroyers of old states, they were equally focused on administration, using their communication networks and a disciplined census system to govern the regions they seized. This created the Pax Mongolica, an era where vast, disparate regions of Eurasia were unified under a single political and legal system for the first time in centuries. This medieval illustration highlights the revival of the Silk Road. With the empire enforcing safety across its routes, merchants could travel across cultural zones that were once too dangerous to cross. This led to an explosion of exchange. Technologies, ideas, medical knowledge flowed between East and West, creating a level of cross-continental connection that the medieval world had never seen. The empire that began as a force of destruction ended up serving as the architect for a more integrated, global civilization. The same continental scale that made the empire legendary eventually made it impossible to sustain. After the death of Genghis Khan, central governance became increasingly difficult as distances between regions proved too great to bridge. Over time, political unity weakened. Different geographic regions developed their own priorities and eventually split into separate khanates, causing the formal empire to dissolve. But while the political structures collapsed, the economic and cultural networks they built remained. The trade routes and global connections they opened continued to influence the world long after the Mongol rulers were gone. The interconnected world we recognize today has its roots in this era. The bridges built between East and West, first established across the Mongolian steppe, remain a permanent part of our global history.